Hey guys, what is up? NYK31 here, doing a little bit of football 101 with this video, and I'm going to talk about one of my big pet peeves in the Madden game plan community, and that is talking about quarters coverage or quarters four, cover four. Excuse me. But yeah, this is a huge pet peeve of mine. Going throughout the year and participating in watching the Madden tournament streams and being in the chat rooms and all that good stuff, and also playing people all year long. There's still this giant misconception about what cover four is, what it's designed to do, strengths and weaknesses, and all that good stuff. Now, a lot of it I can't blame on the Madden player. The Madden player has been used to understanding football in a certain way for a very long time, so it's going to take some time to educate people who aren't the nutcases like people like myself, DSK, Grafster, Beast Mode, and all those people like that who have an affinity for this kind of thing to learn. So that's why you have me doing stuff like this. I play a lot of cover four against 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, 21 personnel, two back, one tight end. Basically, most power under center sets, I'll play a healthy dose of cover four. Now, why do I do this? Well, because contrary to what a lot of opinions are out there, cover four is actually a very sound run defense. I can't tell you how many times throughout the year I see someone or multiple people in a stream chat complaining that someone is using cover four to stop the run, or when I'm playing someone and they're raiding me because cover four is stuffing their run. Now, the reason why this happens is because this game over the years has conditioned people to believe that this is strictly a long yardage, passive, four across coverage that will protect them deep against anything and everything. Not so. Not so. With how dominant the spread is in the NFL is basically an 11 personnel league. Yeah, the power run game still has its place, but it's more of a one back, one tight end, three receiver league with a heavy preponderance of zone running when they run the ball. But of course, in the NFL, you still want to be able to run the ball when it's time to run it. Throw to score, you run to win. At the college level, college football is, spread football central. So what defenses want to do, they still want to have a way to play a two deep shell, but still have their safeties involved in the run game. Man cannot live by single high alone. And the quarters coverage allows him to do this. Now, in some ways that translates in this game, in a lot of ways it does not. I'll go over that in a little bit. Like I said, I primarily use quarters coverage in run situations, in under center run situations versus the pass, because I believe that in the passing game you can slice this up 7 ways to Sunday. Now against the pass in this game, the coverage is littered with problems, mainly because it's a spot drought coverage for all intents and purposes. Like this version here out of the 3-4, you have your three receiver hook and you have your quarter flats. The quarter flats, they were designed in the game theoretically to match outward breaking routes by the slots and tight ends and also run vertically with vertical routes by the slot and tight end. They don't really do either one particularly well. Three receiver hook does a decent job, but when you combine the quarter flats, lack of effectiveness, and the passivity of the deep zone defenders, both safety and corner, and the fact that you don't have coverage leverage being played by the corner, it can get ugly in a hurry for you if you try to base out of this for pass defense. But against the run, it replicates its purpose pretty darn well. 4-3 does it better than the 3-4. I've talked about how the outside backers are really vulnerable to counter, and still, in my opinion, more so to stretch than the 4-3 even post-patch. And plus the linebackers in general, I don't really like how they play in a 3-4 as far as how they respond to their gap fits. I'll go into that in another video. But execution-wise, it does a pretty good job. You see the safety run fits here, very aggressive. The safety to the strong side, he'll fire down to fill his gap. The backside safety, he plays cutback. And, the opposite direction, same thing. So we're just going to run a basic power here. And you'll see the safeties come down and fire. See how aggressive he comes down and fires? That's what you want your quarters coverage players to play. And this allows teams, theoretically, to play 8 in the box like so and still have protection down the middle seams. Also, if they want to get really aggressive and or if they don't have much respect for the opponent's passing game, you can throw 9 in the box. Now this allows you to get really aggressive at the line of scrimmage. You have your 9 in the box there, and you still have your seam protection. You can run down the seams with tight ends and slot receivers, provide your safeties have the athleticism to do that. Your one-on-one outside the corners down the field, obviously, they're playing with outside leverage, but it gets tricky for corners sometimes depending on formation and how the routes are being distributed underneath. You're playing with outside leverage as a corner, but you also can't automatically assume help in the post. You got to play with outside leverage and still be on the alert to play over the top of the post route as best you can, depending on what's happening and what these safeties have to do around you. But that's a general idea. And like I said, against the run, it does a pretty good job. The defense in a show blitz. And you see both safeties come up there to fill their run lanes very aggressively. Now, the obvious vulnerability to your safeties playing that aggressive downhill on their run pass keys in the real is play action. A good play action pass fake and good run action by the offensive line to sell the play action can open up your safeties to a world of hurt if they're not very disciplined. Now, in this game, that doesn't really translate that well. It's very hard to manipulate deep defenders with play action fakes. Like when I run here, play action scissors here, but even something that's designed to attack, the coverage in a more aggressive way, that's a bit of a problem. Like you see, the play fake doesn't really do much of anything to anybody. They're bailing out right away because they know it's passed right away because nothing is sold anywhere. There's no there's no sell job by the offensive line certainly, and the defenders don't really get manipulated by play fakes very often either. So that's kind of negated. It doesn't really translate well at all. But the biggest problem here is that this coverage is just one spot drop central and two bad spot drop central. I talked about the ineffectiveness of the quarter flats. With the hook zones, they just kind of drift aimlessly as well, and they don't really gain the proper width and depth to obstruct anything down the middle. So I'm running a play action out, and because you can't play with outside leverage, the out route is easy pickings. It's easy pickings as long as there's someone, doing something to hold the quarter flat defender. I'm going to hit to the other side now. Easy, because there's no leverage being played and they just skate out of there. Hook zones, they don't match. They just drift. And I could probably squeeze that post route in there too. Yep, I just low passed it and you see the safeties, they don't converge. So against the pass, you have a royal mess. I mean, the quarter flats, they don't do the carrying of the vertical or the matching of the outside route. Let's say if I run a double, let's change it to a double out on this side here. They don't do a good job at all. It's the worst zone in the game by a mile, and it really compromises his coverage in pass situations. The type of cover four that teams play in the real, this is nowhere close to. Nowhere close. I mean, even for verts, you're not safe. Because again, how the passivity of the deep blue zones this year. I just throw it right in front of the safety and lead it away from the backer. So, it's a really, really poor coverage to play in passing situations. When I do play it in passing situations, I jerry rig it to death. I basically create bootleg coverage concepts. Like what I'll do is that I'll put this safety here into a cloud flat and replace him with either the slot corner or the hook zone backer. If I do the hook zone backer, I'll have this guy go into a hook and have him in a deep blue or vice versa with these two guys. So not only is it vulnerable to concepts that it shouldn't be vulnerable against, it's also vulnerable to the standard cover four beaters like Salem and Mills concepts. This is a Salem concept here. It's a high-low progression. Hitch with a dig over it. Hitch corner I probably won't have. We'll take a look and see. But I have the backside dig. Again, they float. A Salem concept is designed to test the patience and discipline of this safety here. He's not going to be influenced by the hitch, obviously. But again, once in the real world, once this safety here reads quick pass, quick hitch, quick inside, quick outside by this receiver, his eyes should be turning to bracket number one to his side. But again, this is a drift land. So this leaves a square in wide open. He's still drifting. He needs to be driving right now. If not, if he's a stud, recognizing that he needs the bracket right here. I mean, look at all this acres of grass. I mean, this is fine. This is fine. Flat's going to be open here. But by the time number one here, at the very latest, he should be driving on to cut this route off here if he has any play rec at all. Again, this is what would happen in the real world. People play match quarters. They don't play the spot drop quarter coverage. This right here is a diagram of match quarters. Saban and Belichick, they call match quarters cover seven. This is basically a diagram showing it against your standard I formation. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to talk about Cone and Meg. You see Cone, Meg on the solo side corner with a weak side corner. Force X release, force read X release, box tight end vertical read, and your corner on the strong side is in your standard quarters deep zone. Meg literally stands for man everywhere he goes. And to keep things simple, off of the Meg, coverage will, rotate to follow standard match quarter rules. In a cone call, the safety on the solo side can bracket the solo side receiver. A Meg call, he's going to have to rotate and keep his eyes open for crossers, and he can also act as a robber in some situations. The backers have to account for backs wheeling out of the backfield against that type of formation. The strong safety reads the release of the tight end and goes from there. And again, same rules apply for spreads that you're just changing personnel from a full back to a slot receiver, single back, and the tight end and the other two outside receivers, of course. Here are the Chiefs playing cover four press, diagram courtesy of Matt Bowen. Here are the KC Chiefs playing press quarters, diagram is courtesy of Matt Bowen. Corners will be playing press bail, outside leverage. You see the underneath defenders. You see that you have your one middle hook and your two flat defenders. Safeties are going to be reading the release of the number two receivers on their side. And depending on their release, that'll determine what they do. Obviously, if they press vertical, they'll take the man to man. Now, think logically. How would you attack this if you were on offense? You'd want to force those safeties against a team that plays. If you're playing a team that plays a heavy dose of quarters coverage, you want to force those safeties to prove that they can cover shifty slot receivers and good receiving tight ends in space, double moves, stutter goes, corner posts, post corners, sharp out routes. Make those safeties have to change direction and prove that they can cover in space. You also want to test their eye discipline and their play recognition, play action passes, a healthy dose of pin and mill concepts where you have a post and a square in comboing off each other to the same side, or you can do it to the opposite side, or have dagger concepts being run where you have a seam and a square in, a seam and a post, switch concepts as well. All kinds of things you can do to test the discipline of those safeties, because you're not just going to dink and dunk all game. It doesn't happen. You're going to have to take some calculated shots downfield over the course of a game, and that's how you'd want to do it. But as you can see, the point was that cover four is a really dynamic coverage, which the virtual world does not translate or replicate very well at all when it comes to the coverage aspects of it. Run fits we can live with, but the coverage part really needs a whole heck of a lot of work. I may call cover four maybe once or twice in a game, if that, in pass situations, or against someone who plays exclusively out of the shotgun, for the reasons that I pointed out earlier. So that's it for this episode of Football 101. Hope it was informative and hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.